everybody, welcome back to Q-Tips. We are the Video Store Junkies, and we are back once again to bring you a few selections to watch on streaming over the weekend. And we're going to get right into this, and I'll pass it over to Zach.
Thank you so much, Renee. So my first pick is, this is not a theme, unfortunately. I guess it actually should have been. I should have found a second movie. But my first pick is going to be a movie that you can watch with your dog. And I know this because I was watching this movie last night, and my little puppy was very fascinated by this film because there are a lot of dogs in this movie, or I should say there are a lot of wolves in this movie, because the name of the movie is The Company of Wolves. This is a werewolf film of the 80s that is probably not quite as familiar as some of the other films in the 80s that had werewolves in them, mostly because this one is not really a straight horror movie. It's more of a dark fantasy fairy tale type film. It's directed by Neil Jordan, who would go on to make movies like The Crying Game and Interview with a Vampire. And so, yeah, it's not quite it's no American Werewolf in London or The Howling in terms of, the genre. But I think it's got some cool effects. It's got kind of a cool narrative style to it because there are a lot of stories within stories within stories, which is kind of a narrative trope that I really enjoy. So I don't know if I need to get in too much about the plot, but let's just say it's they're familiar. Please edit that out, Renee. there are familiar themes, of various fairy tales that involve wolves, big wolves, and but there are some interesting modern twists on them. And also, most importantly, though, great cast here. A lot of people who actually, I think the main girl in this movie actually was only in like 2 other movies, but this movie also features Angela Lansbury and David Warner. So yeah, may they both rest in peace. So the movie, once again, is The Company of Wolves, and it is available on Shudder, Fubo, Canopy, and Plex. And also apparently Fandor. I don't know what that is, but if you subscribe to it, you can watch this movie here. So anyways, speaking of people who can rest in peace, I have no idea where I was going. I always start these transitions before I actually know where I'm going with them, and they only land about 20% of the time. So I'm just gonna pass it right back to you, Renee.
No. Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
I was not expecting it to come back.
I know it. People rarely pass it back to the host, so
yeah.
And it always ruins the rest of the episode. So good luck.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh! So we just passed Easter weekend, so I'm a little bit late with my recommendation. But maybe you didn't have time to watch a movie, and now you're trying to catch up. Well, I'm here to help you. It's not really an Easter bunny movie, but it is about a rabbit and a man who was bitten by a rabbit. And much like Spider-Man, he became half rabbit, half... Well, I guess he really didn't happen. I guess that's really more like The Fly, isn't it? Anyway, I'm going to edit all that out. So anyway, this man transforms into a half man, half bunny, and he's out for revenge. And this movie is called Rotten Tail.
Yay!
Yeah, and it stars Corin Nemec. And that is my theme. Corin Nemec, one of the most underrated actors of don't
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, one of the most underrated actors, I think, in all of Hollywood. So yeah, that is this just ridiculous, fun movie, and honestly, he just is so fun and ridiculous, and he's just so good. And it was very enjoyable, if for no other reason than just to watch Corin Nemec in this role. So yeah, that's my recommendation. It is called Rotten Tail, and you can watch that on Tubi or a streaming service that I'd not heard of before called Runtime. And Runtime apparently is also a free streaming service. So there you go. And I will pass this over to another underrated actor, Paul.
Well, thank you.
It's true. Paul, didn't you get bitten by a rabbit in a movie once? Or am I thinking of Bill?
No, but that was what Bill was related to the rabbit. But my son did play the younger version of Bill.
Oh, that's true.
In the prequel.
There you go.
and he did have a stuffed rabbit, so there is that connection. And I was a zombie in the first one, so I was, bitten by somebody who was bitten by somebody who was bitten by somebody who was bitten by the rabbit. So, there we go. So anyway, Zach's picks last week actually inspired me. You did terrible, shitty people, right, Zach? Wasn't that?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
people who you love to see miserable. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, I was looking at terrible, shitty people, and this one is actually a real terrible, shitty person. And this is the story of Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos.
Oh man!
Now, if you're not familiar with Theranos, she started the company when she was 19, and it grew to be like a $9 billion company. The idea was to make very inexpensive blood tests, and that you could use with just a drop of blood. And they'd have this device, and they were going to do these blood tests, and they did all this stuff, and they just she was on the cover of Fortune magazine, and she was considered all these fabulous things, and then it turns out, it was all bullshit. The technology didn't work at all, and they were giving back patients actual tests that weren't correct. And so this is The Dropout on Hulu. It is a fictionalized version of the semi-fictionalized story. It's mostly true on Hulu. It's an 8-part miniseries. And it's based on the Dropout podcast, which was based on a book. And it's really the story of her starting the company all the way to sort of her downfall. And she's played by Amanda, is it Seyfried? How do you pronounce her name?
Oh, I thought it was Seyfried?
Seyfried, yeah. Amanda Seyfried. It's got a ton of people in it. It's got, who does it have? Oh, I have to look it up. William H. Macy, Sam Waterston, Ann Archer, Stephen Fry, Bill Irwin, Laurie Metcalf. It's interesting. It's serious, but there's definitely some humor to it. Let's put it this way: of the 8 episodes, 4 of them are directed by Michael Showalter. So there's some interesting little bits of humor in there, but it's mostly serious because some serious shit really did happen. It was called The Dropout because she kind of fancied herself the next Steve Jobs. She actually apparently had posters of him on her wall when she was a kid. She eventually started dressing just in black outfits and black turtlenecks. I don't know if you've ever seen any video of Elizabeth Holmes, but I don't think she blinked. And she put on this affected voice where she talked like this very deep voice, and it's very kind of really weird and off-putting. And Amanda Seyfried doesn't go that, she goes she does it a bit, but not nearly as extreme. Like when you see real things from Elizabeth Holmes, it's even worse. This woman was the grifter of the most extreme. You will get the details from the movie. The movie actually covers it's mostly true. There's some characters that are composites of other characters, and of course it's something slightly fictionalized for effect, but it's a fascinating story about just how shitty these people were. But what's interesting is also the way they do this is it's not necessarily unsympathetic to her. I think it tries to get a little bit into the psychology of maybe why she was doing what she was doing. The New York Times reporter who kind of exposed all this considers her a sociopath. He really thinks she's honestly a sociopath. The movie doesn't quite go that far. It doesn't exonerate her. It shows her what a piece of shit she is, but it also tries to explore maybe some of the reasoning behind it, some of the psychology perhaps of it. So it's really fascinating. So that's the Dropout. It's 8 episodes on Hulu, and I highly recommend it. It is fascinating stuff. Like I said, there's definitely some humor in there. So it's a fun one to watch, aside from some of the horrible shit that happens. But anyway, speaking of let's see, girl bosses, I'll pass this to Zach.
Definitely me, Paul. Thank you very much. Hey, by the way, Renee, is it bad? Look, I don't want to shit on your boy here, but is it bad? Okay, obviously, Corin Nemec, love him in one of the best TV movies of all time, The Stand. Is it bad that I had just assumed that he had stopped acting shortly thereafter? Like, is it bad that I just assumed that he stopped acting in the mid-90s?
Yeah,
I feel
yes.
I did not. This man has 107 credits, up to and including Half Dead Fred in 2023. So I feel I genuinely thought that he had like retired.
See,
anyways,
underrated,
underappreciated. Yeah, I apologize that I did not catch his turn as Clint in 2008's Cop Dog. Anyways, hey, one of my my favorite things about the golden age of television is that they end TV shows before they jump the shark. And this is just something I appreciate, that now that creators have a little more control, they can just say, okay, we're done, we're out, we're gonna go out on a high note. And coincidentally, the show I'm about to recommend is about to end its run in the 4th season. And so it's a good time to catch up if you haven't seen it. Also, coincidentally, the show I'm about to recommend co-stars Henry Winkler. Go look up that reference, kids. The show I'm talking about is, of course, Barry. This is a show about a hitman who is played by Bill Hader. So it's kind of got some comedy to it. Actually, maybe a little bit like The Dropout. It's got a little comedy. It's got a little drama. It's got a little bit of everything. This is the sort of show I went into thinking I knew exactly. I thought it was just going to be Bill Hader. He's funny. He's a comedian. I thought it was just going to be kind of a funny show about him being a hitman. No, it is so much more. It is so good. It is so incredible. He's amazing in it. Henry Winkler, who kind of starts out as the like lovable bumbling fool that he plays a lot of in his later years. He definitely gets some great scenes, though. He gets some serious scenes later on, and also you have Stephen Root, which, oh my God, what can I say? I will watch anything with Stephen Root, even if this show is awful. I would still watch it, but it's not. It's one of the most amazing shows of the last decade. So the show is Barry. There are currently 3 seasons on HBO Max. The 4th season, and the 4th and final season is about to start pretty soon here. So I would highly recommend catching up. I'm not kidding when I say not only is it one of my favorite shows, but it's also got there's an episode in I think season 2, if I remember correctly. Literally, probably one of my like top 20 episodes of television of all time. It's that good. So check it out. It's amazing. And I'm going to be sorry to see it go, but, glad it's going out on a high note. Hey, speaking of things I'm going to be sorry to see go, Renee, I'm sorry, but we've talked. We're having to do some cost cutting. No, I'm just kidding. That's the thing that's great about not having to pay anyone. None of us getting paid. We can't. None of us can get fired. Anyways, please give us your second pick for this weekend.
My second recommendation, speaking of amazing Corin Nemec movies, that was a terrible segue because we weren't speaking about amazing Corin Nemec movies. What am I going to use for a segue?
Speaking of, you're gonna take a stand that you love Corin Nemec.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, that was good. That was good. I'm going to use that. So my next recommendation is one of my very favorite movies that I've recommended before, but I think it's been a while. Sand Sharks.
Yay!
Yeah. So this story, it's about Jimmy Green. Jimmy Green's a young go-getter, and he wants to come revive the town where he was from. He wants to throw a big party. He wants to bring in some tourism. He really wants to bring some energy to the town and revive things. Unfortunately, some sharks get in the way. And that movie is called Sand Sharks. You can watch it on Tubi. And on that note, I'll pass this over to Paul.
Why, thank you, Renee. So after you finish watching the 8 episodes of The Dropout, and you go, well, what was the real story? How much of that was real? How much of that, some of that, like, did she really have a giant quote from Yoda painted on the wall of Theranos? Yes, she did. How much this was true, then you should watch The Inventor, Out for Blood in Silicon Valley, a documentary playing on HBO Max. It is by director Alex Gibney, who did Going Clear, the Scientology documentary. It is really fascinating. It doesn't go into like the psychology of her so much. So I think that's somewhere where The Dropout is really good, because it kind of tries to give you at least, because there's definitely gender politics there. That was a big thing. If you're going against me, it's because I'm a woman, versus some other people are like, you're screwing it up for other women, which then it gets into the whole respectability politics, things like that. It's really interesting. So you get that aspect more from The Dropout. This is going to be more sort of the facts, kind of, but also sort of also exploring how it kind of came about. It's really almost sort of like how things were uncovered. There were a lot of big players in Theranos. I mean, she had George Shultz, who was on the board. In fact, his grandson played a fairly large role in her downfall. Henry Kissinger was on her board. Speaking of terrible, shitty, horrible people.
Oh my God. I can't believe she ruined the name of Henry Kissinger. It's horrible.
Yeah. It's, it's really fascinating. It's a fascinating story. And in this, you watch, you go, oh my God, she doesn't blink. And her voice is even stranger and creepier than they portrayed it. It's well worth watching. Like I said, I would watch the Dropout first, because that way you kind of get the drama aspects of it and sort of the buildup of the story, and then you go to this and see some of the things that really were going on. Now both of these were filmed, like The Inventor came out in 2019. The Dropout came out in 2022. By the time The Dropout came out, she and Sunny Bawali, who were her COO, who also secretly had been her lover the whole time.
Oh my God.
It's amazing. Both of them had been convicted, but they hadn't been necessarily sentenced when that came out. She was recently sentenced. Actually, it was interesting, after she was convicted, she and her new boyfriend / possibly husband, we're not really sure, father of her 2 children now, they had one-way tickets to go to Mexico. They said, no, we got that before the trial. We thought we'd win. We thought we'd go to celebrate. They're like, yeah, bullshit. You were trying to run away. And anyway, so she has been sentenced to a little bit of not really a spoiler because this didn't show up there. Sunny was sentenced to like 12 plus years in prison. She's been sentenced to, I think, 11 and a half years in prison. She has to report by the end of August this year. And she's going to be going to a minimum, like absolute minimum security prison. Like it doesn't even have border fences and stuff. And she can get out in 9.5 years. She's also banned from running a company for 10 years. But what's interesting is, what she was convicted of? She wasn't convicted on any counts of defrauding the patients. The people that got back, false positives on aid tests, or tests that told them they still had cancer when they didn't really, or tests that told them they had a miscarriage when they didn't really. She didn't get convicted on any of that. She only got convicted on things for defrauding the rich people out of their money. So there you go. Anyway, getting a little political there. Anyway, so yeah, I recommend it. It's the Inventor, Out for Blood on Silicon Valley on HBO Max. And I think we're done. Are we done?
Yeah.
Even though there were 1.5 million needle drops in The Dropout, I'm not going to do any of those. I'm just going to do a song that's at least tangentially ready because it has Dropout in the title. Your story's sad to tell, a teenage ne'er-do-well, most mixed up non-delinquent on the block.
For the weekend of April 14th, Paul recommended The Dropout, available on Hulu, and The Inventor, Out for Blood in Silicon Valley on HBO Max. I recommended Rotten Tail, available on Tubi and Runtime, and Sand Sharks, available on Tubi and Yup TV. Zachary recommended The Company of Wolves, available on Shudder, Plex, Fubo, Canopy, and Fandor, and Barry, available on HBO Max. Oh,
dangerous. Yeah, I could keep going because I have the lyrics, but but you don't want that. Trust me.
Nah.
Yeah.
So I've been perusing the Core Nimic IMDb, and I think I found the next show I want to cover on our sister podcast. Apparently, he was in a show called Blade Squad in 1998, which I got really excited because I was like, "Oh, is this some like spin-off of Blade that I wasn't aware of?" You know, because that movie came out in 1998. No. Let me read you the plot, the synopsis of what Blade Squad is about. The Blade Squad is an experimental police chaser unit that consists of mainly cops who have screwed up and are practically off the force, who patrol the city on rollerblades and have jetpacks that give them speed.
What?
Presently, the department is trying to decide if whether or not they are worth keeping on. They are going after street punks who pull flawless robberies, and what they don't know is that the man's brother was arrested by them and tried to run away and was killed in the process. He blames and is planning to go after them. That was from the description for Blade Squad from RCS0411 @yahoo.com. So I don't know how accurate it is, but sounds pretty good.